Hi, welcome to Conversion Conversations. This is Cameron, and today I have my friend Nick Wiedeman, who just won the Octagon Corona, what is it, Coronavirus 3 tournament? Coronavirus 2 tournament? Corona
Corona
Cup
Cup
3,
3, I
which
believe.
was the first time. So, what you were telling me off camera was it's the first time they did Wave 5. The previous two were like a Wave 4 and then a specialty tournament format. So yeah, I
Correct.
wanted to pick your brain because I missed out on signing up for the tournament, and I was curious about how all it went. Do you know how many people ended up playing? Oh
I believe it
dang!
was 41. Oh, it
Yeah,
was
so
a
that's like the
good
size
number.
of
I
that's
do
the size of
go
like
over too.
the some of the Origin events. I think that's a really good size.
It was a nice. We had 5 rounds before it cut the top 8, so definitely got a lot of games in with the
And
new
you
wave. So it was
took to the
enjoyable.
tournament your Skyshadow Horribull decklist that you wrote up an article in Fortress Maximus about. And I guess how did you do?
I think at this point I managed to take
Yeah,
down the tournament with that list. Um, so it was kind of nice to get a little proof of concept down in the first tournament, and we'll see how everyone reacts
and
to it.
just
Is
a
what I'm looking
slight
forward to now.
note. So the way your list works in Octagon, because of the way their database handles sideboarding, you technically have to have Ominous listed in your sideboard, but you actually had what Clobber in your sideboard at the time, or was it B?
Yes, I did,
Clobber.
did have
Did you end
Clobber
up using
for
him
that
at all?
tournament. Never.
Okay.
I did not. I just he was just there really, in case I really thought I wanted to go as aggro as possible, but that never really came up in any of my matches where I thought it'd be a good
Yeah.
idea to
Do you want to
side
talk
into
us
him.
through kind of? So you said there
And
were 5 rounds first, and then cut to top 8. What were your? Do you remember your matchups all that well? Because this was it happened over the course of what, 2 weeks, 3 weeks?
yeah, there's about
Yeah.
2 or 3 days in between rounds. So, but I did manage. I actually wrote down what I played against in the first 5 rounds, and then I think I remember my top 8 pretty well. So yeah, we can just kind of go here, just kind of general. I don't know maybe about specific plays or anything like that from the first couple, but I definitely had the matchups. So round 1, I played against Richard over at TransformYourGame.net. He was playing Skyshadow Perceptor, but
Hmm.
definitely a blue build. It was I took that one 2-1. It was some tight games, and it was my first time playing against Skyshadow. I had played against Perceptor a little bit from some testing before, but it was kind of interesting to have not quite a mirror match, but a very similar deck, albeit
Hmm.
a defensive one in round 1. So managed to go 1 in that series and move on to round 2. And round 2, I played Galaxy Prime, and unfortunately, that was kind of a bit of a slaughter.
Blue build, blue
Um,
Galaxy Prime.
my deck, yeah, yeah, and then he was playing it with, I believe it was Brawn and Night Racer. Um, the amount of direct damage and then just the Autobot hate between Sky Shadow's Bolt on Combine
Yep.
and Magnetic Dysfunction Ray, I chewed through that and
Yeah, yeah.
two
Because you
pretty
could
quickly.
easily put 2 to 3 damage per turn direct damage with Horrible, and then you get the combine, which is another 3 damage. And if you happen to play, Magnetic Dysfunction Ray, that's another 2 on 2 of their guys. Plus, like your deck list is
Hmm,
almost perfectly split between black pips and orange pips, so you don't care about
yeah,
blue all that much. And I've been running essentially the same, some slight tweaks, but the same deck list for the Vector Sigma tournament, and it was the same thing. Like I played one match against a blue deck, and it just like those blue pips didn't matter.
yeah. I very rarely cared if against. Actually, I prefer to see blue decks, which was actually got to see quite a few of them. So I enjoyed that in the first 5 rounds. So I don't want to call them obviously free or easy because obviously I dropped some games, but seeing blue, depending on how it was built and if they were boarding options, I kind of just was
Hmm.
able to chew through things a lot. All right, and then I would say my round 3, I played against a General Optimus Prime from Wave 3.
I do still like that General Optimus.
Then, so I haven't quite built too much with them, but I think I've put him in my sideboard a lot for like just 11 stars is still a great flexible option to have.
Exactly. You can build up, wherever you want him to be. What was he partnered with? Yeah.
And he was paired with Fangry with the Parsec head, which is much the standard partner outside of, we've seen, I think, one now in the Vector Sigma that had him with Ominous, so that's interesting. But Fangry and Parsec, and then the Impactor, 7 stars.
Gotcha. So getting some very cheap.
I don't know if he's a record tag.
In kind of a 3-wide, pseudo 4-wide format.
I was a little worried seeing that, because the nice thing is Fangry's not going to be able to hit my Skyshadow parts very hard, because they're all 7 stars, so he won't get the bonus bold. But his was a little more mixed pip than I was expecting. So I know in one of them, I don't remember if this one was, I think I took this one 2-0 still. But he swung with Fangry into Horribull when he went first, which is pretty much the best way to get the max value out of him. But I think, remember, one of his games, his flips weren't that great. Like, he might have only hit for 5 after all that. So I think maybe might have just should have leaned a little more aggro with that lineup of what you were trying to do. And then the flips kind of got not necessarily strange, but he would not really able to flip Impactor and General Optimus on the same turn. Didn't really allow that extra bolt to sometimes pop off.
Yeah, with that you almost, because I forget Impactor's wording. Is it if he stays in one side, everyone gets bold, or if he stays in one side, he gives himself bold and he has to flip to give everyone else bold?
His bot side, he's just bolt 1, but if you flip him from bot to alt mode as tank, he gives the rest of your team bold 1.
I can see how that becomes an awkward setup, because
sometimes. And I think the one game he led with Impactor, which was probably about better, but it kind of helps the flips there, because if you just flip him and send him, then you can just kind of flip him back next turn for Fangry and not really worry about it. I mean, for a while, I think he did that one, which was still a lot of big swing, but I was able to kind of send a Skyshadow piece out to take the hit instead of Horribull, to still get max value out of Horribull and his health and his ability. I think 3-wide aggro was what I was most worried about playing against, depending on how hard they decided they wanted to come at, depending on who they were able to hit and put a lot of damage on.
And that does make sense, because like your deck is formatted so it goes well against like mid-range and then blue decks, but you can be like, the deck list can be out aggroed by someone just not worrying about Pierce and just leaning into orange as heavy as possible and bold.
Which I'm not sure there's going to be that much of that flipping around at the moment, but if all the orange-black has been going around becomes prevalent, then maybe straight orange has a chance to kind of come in and feast on those. My goal was to hopefully I could push enough damage out of combat. I was pretty much maxing out on every burden card that had a black pip. I was pretty much trying to just get rid of things out of combat. That was kind of my goal, was to just anything that was tapped, I didn't really want it to untap at any point. So I would pretty much just concentrate on whatever character that was and just know that if they KO my Skyshadow piece, I'm just getting a bigger character that's also going to more than likely get the KO again.
Yeah, exactly. They only get one attack with each character.
Right. And then round 4, I played against Skyshadow Windsweeper, and this was a blue build, blue-black, kind of with the damage moving. I took this one 2-0, but the second game, I'm going to say I probably stole it a little bit with a wild Peace Through Tyranny turn. He was playing some interesting cards, like he played a Regenerative Core, which kind of was the one that lets you, when that character attacks, move a damage from it to that card. So he put it on one of his Skyshadow pieces one time, and it kind of just, I was planning to get the KO out of combat, or at least that next turn, and it threw the math off on it. Just that one damage was able to just really sweep, kind of throw off my math, because I have to be pretty precise with where I'm placing the damage just to ensure I get those KOs. Since I'm not as aggressive orange, I can kind of I pretty much know what I'm going to hit for most times before I swing. So him being able to just even throw the math off a little bit was interesting. Didn't get as much value out of Windsweeper as probably other matchups in that one, just because the plane didn't usually get to attack twice to move the damage. And then Windsweeper himself was 15 health, which was kind of a lot to chew from. So in the second game, he was able to play a point position down, which meant his Skyshadow was already combined, and I couldn't get to his Skyshadow combiner then. So what I had to do is I had my Skyshadow combiner and my basically full health Horribull, and my Horribull was tapped. So I PTT'd away my Horribull to pop Grax out, and then I believe I had a fusion board that I put on Skyshadow, and I sent both those attacks into Windsweeper, and I was able to, I want to say I got all 15 through on those 2 attacks, still go into the untap on my PTT turn. And then I was able to kill Skyshadow. So there's some crazy things you can do with Beast through Tyranny in this deck.
And one thing I've noticed is with the prevalence of Titanmasters, like in my own matches, I've messed up PTTs where I play it, but I don't get the value I want out of it because I swing into the body and a head pops out instead of killing the non-body character to get the untap and swing again. So it's...
So the heads have provided some interesting styles to the pattern of play. So like things like that, you definitely want to make sure like, well, which one you want to KO first to preserve that untap and PTT turn. So it's kind of interesting to finally get some games in and see how it actually interacted. Which, again, because I think some of the guys from Vector Show talked about that things now are just kind of feels like one long turn, and there's really only going to be probably one time things untap. Is kind of how, at least in aggro matchups, it's gone. So that's been interesting to see because you're pretty much it's just been a lot different than the kind of pattern we've been used to.
Like a lot of people were concerned about the difference in text between belligerence and hostilities. That belligerence goes the whole turn and hostilities is the battle. But now it feels like that doesn't matter anymore because you're not getting that wheel turn that you used to. Now you play belligerence.
Yeah, it kind of seems like the most you'd get 2 characters that are going to get the benefit of that. Instead of like people I think worry about like you got a whole team of like 4, but in that case, if you have a whole team of 4 going against one guy, you're probably already in a bad spot. I mean, at that point, depending on how the deck's built, is kind of just like when someone would play Heat of Battle. Like we were playing that because they've got the deck built the right way, which is something I've kind of started to reconsider if I even wanted belligerence in this sideboard because I didn't necessarily always need it, but I still have them in there just in case though. Supplement against the blue, but I don't think I actually got to play one in most of the tournament.
I've been toying with the idea of like, what if there's a way for me to get end hostilities, that was a sideboard card that might be worth, for the orange on orange mirror, which that aggro mirror I've seen become more and more common in my play.
I put those, I guess, because I also in that Vector Sigma tournament. I put them in my sideboard, but I didn't get the chance to play one. I flipped
that's
my
the
first
thing.
2 attacks.
Without a good way to get to it. And that's something that, like in your deck list, you've got the Pocket Processor is really the only card draw. But you're not too worried about that. I noticed playing through it, like, it doesn't matter what you've got in your hand because every turn you're going to play a weapon and you're going to do some direct damage or do something else that'll get some damage out there. So like a specialty card like Belligerence or End Hostilities where there's no green pip to get it, you might not care about it as much as like Counter Espionage. You'll get to it eventually.
I found like a lot of this time, like I would have a lot of times where I'd have just pretty much be drawing off the top of the deck. But since I constructed it, I guess, pretty decent, most of the times, whatever came off the top of the deck, I just immediately set down. Like, It was usually a good play. Like, there were a few times that I would just hold it because I think, oh, this will work better on the next attack, depending on what's already out there, not the need to play it. But I kind of found this was about as draw and play, like, not easy, but you weren't really sad when you had no cards on hand. Sure, your options were limited then about what came off the top, but it usually wasn't a bad option.
So,
it was nice. And then, what do we got here? Round 5, I played against Stefan Atakuma. You guys check out his channel. He was playing Skyshadow Perceptor, but his was definitely more aggressive leaning. And this was pretty much, we were both 4-0 at this point, so we just played it out just as top seed because we were both into the top 8 at this point. And we were just curious about the matchup. And I took that 2-1, and they were 3 pretty tight games. I'm pretty sure whoever played the PTT won was kind of how that one came down to. I think game 1, I think I took game 1, lost game 2, and then I won game 3. And I think he PTT'd game 2, and I got a PTT off in game 3. So it just kind of felt like whoever got their best play in that one is kind of obviously favored. Usually you're favored when PTT goes off, but it swings it a lot because it also reduces, for my deck, the amount of turns I get to try to burn stuff if they're taking 2 in a row. Now, I don't remember. I don't think he got a lot of showing offs off in that matchup either. So, obviously, great card for Perceptor, building up his attack, getting cards in hand. So if you're not able to play that consistently, it can sometimes slow you down. But it still hit pretty hard.
So you went into the top 8
and
5-0.
5-0, 1 seed. I'm going to take a peek real quick because I forget.
Yeah, I was going to ask, do you happen to know what the top 8 makeup was? So Stefan was there with Skyshadow Perceptor.
Let me pull up. I believe Fortress Maximus posted decks. So the ones he could get a hold of. Tournament decks.
Got it.
We've got 7 of them. And the only one he didn't have was, looks like Kent's deck, which was I played him in top 4, so I know what that was. So there was my Skywolf, Stefan had Skyshadow Perceptor, aggressive. Richard had Skyshadow Perceptor, defensive. And then Christian looks like it had his Chrome Dome, Fangry, Horribull deck, which was, I think, more aggro leaning. I didn't get to see that, but that sounded pretty interesting to try to just steal the action off the first turn with Chrome Dome. Potentially, or whenever. I'm not sure his flip pattern there, but it might have been waited until he attacked. And then there was a Shockwave. Joey played Shockwave. And then it looks like there was a Fortress Maximus. And then the General Optimist deck I played against made top 8 too.
3 of your 5 opponents made top 8, correct? Stefan, Richard, and Jackson?
1, 2.
Yes,
actually.
That's pretty cool.
It is. I didn't even realize that. Now I'm trying to remember what I played. No, I played Joey with Shockwave in my top 4, and I played against the... Oh, no, I remember what it is now. So I played against Shockwave, I played Richard again, and then I played against that Pounce Perceptor Night Racer deck. So I believe I played... Because I played Richard in the finals. And top 8 then, I want to say. We also played in the Vector Sigma, so I'm trying to remember which one was which.
Kind of ran into each other.
We were in the same group. Yeah, so for a while there, I pretty much was in one of those matches every night, and I was getting pretty confused about which one was when. But I want to say in top 8, I played the Shockwave deck. Those were pretty close, honestly. He was able to get down a lot of the secret actions with Rouge, just be able to play everything off the top.
And then Night Racer's giving out... I'm assuming their Shockwave is blue, and Night Racer's giving out tough 1. Yep.
And it was with Sights. And those, I remember I kind of went right after Sights to not let things untap. When I wanted. I kind of changed that up for the Alpha Trion one. But I don't really know if it was the wrong one, but I just pretty much wanted to burn down whoever. And then I got that one game. I won game 1, and game 2 was also close, pretty close, and I pulled off another Peace Through Tyranny play to pretty much blow up Shockwave in one go. So kind of just the amount of natural Pierce I have, especially with Skyshadow Combiner having Ominous, that's more than likely Pierce 8 if a stable cover doesn't get down. So it was kind of tough. He was ripping but I remember. Oh, okay, I remember what happened here. I had a 4-card hand, and he flipped and got a disruptor, and then I didn't play a card the next turn because I wanted to try to preserve as many cards in my hand to keep the PTT, and he got off another disruptor, but was only able to rip that. So the following turn after that, I was able to finally get my Piece through Tyranny off with my last card in hand. So, kind of knowing when not to play things really helped out on that matchup, just because I was able to push through it so much damage anyways with all my black pips. It was pretty cool. He's going to have to adjust a little bit, I think, with what secret actions he's running. Obviously, everyone's been talking about this, but tough probably is not great anymore. Just because black pips, it doesn't really matter how much blue you flip, you're still going to be taking damage.
Playing the tough list is, I think, a difficult battle right now. I think you get more value out of the static +2 armors than you do out of a sparring gear.
Yeah, that's kind of what I think about it too. And even then, like, the statics are nice, but with the amount of pierce and direct damage, I wasn't really necessarily worried about armor. Except Hollow Matter Projector, which leads us right into my top 4. Which I played also Kent from TransformYourGame.net, and he was running heavy filled
Sorry, you
deck,
broke up for a second.
and he had a lot of...
Because his list isn't here, I think.
It's not there. It's Perceptor, Bounce, and Night Racer. The same lineup that I believe Scott was playing it on one of the Vector Sigma videos, their Vector Sigma reveals that they posted up. So it's kind of been around there. His had a few different choices. I don't believe Kent played Showing Off with it, and he just leaned more into the secret actions, and he had main decked Hollow Matter Projectors and Stable Covers and Take Covers. So it was a tough matchup. I won game 1 pretty convincing. I don't think he got down many secret actions, didn't see a Hollow Matter Projector, and kind of just mowed through it. And then game 2 he sided into, I'm pretty sure at the end of it he was running 3 projectors, 3 take covers, 3 stable covers. So that was a lot to chew from, and I lost game 2 because I did not pick up a bashing shield for some reason during one of our games to bump off a Hollow Matter Projector. I just kind of put the cards in the discard and didn't think about it, and he was flipped, had some pretty great defensive flips combined with the stable covers and take covers at then to where he won game 2, and then game 3 I just kind of a middle ground, just kind of had enough damage to burn through and really not be troubled too much by the secret actions. So it was definitely interesting.
That's a card I'm wondering if that's a miss in not including that in my sideboard, because it, like, against the mirror match where you're dealing with Horribull, like that's I think the best way to deal with him.
At least for like aggro wise, it's the only, I don't want to say only, the best way without going too far away from it. Just because green, it's splashable, you can pick it up and it doesn't detract too much from the orange builds now, especially since it seems to be going orange-black a lot. But yeah, so he had all the answers there. It's just a matter when he saw them. I don't know I think not playing the showing offs I can't really decide if that was good or bad, because it allowed him to definitely get the secret actions he wanted in. But then it also kind of limited how many cards he was able to see if he didn't get at least one showing off. I don't know. It was still definitely pretty tough because he had as many answers as I think you can squeeze in one deck. It just kind of depended on when they came up for him. So I think without playing the showing off, he might not have seen them as quickly as possible. I think it's that deck's probably I think it's one of my favorite ones going in. I'm actually running kind of similar list for the next Corona Cup. Just because I wanted to try to go as different as possible from what I've played in the last 2 tournaments now, and I think it's
as far away from it as I can get. Answers to Horribull, the only character answer is Motormaster, and I think he's just not effective for the 5 stars you're spending. He doesn't do much besides soak up the first 3 turns of Horribull's damage.
You played against that in the Alpha Trion tournament, correct?
And
yeah. That, if I remember correctly, like you just put all the direct damage on him, and
he was
you
usually
didn't really
dead before I would have to swing into him. Like, so then it was like my opponent bought himself 8. He essentially bought 8 points of damage from coming from Horribull, but that's the only thing that Motormaster does.
Yeah, like, because he also feels like you want to protect him, but if you're just protecting Motormaster, you're hitting, because I believe that was in a Skyshadow deck too, correct? You're just getting a hit on one of the pieces, and yeah, you're not burning them, I guess, but I just feel like with, 2 attack, 8 health, 2 defense in truck mode for Motormaster, he just doesn't really provide enough
and in a blue
side of that.
In a blue deck list, you're hoping for a black pip. Otherwise, that 2 attack is doing literally 0 when he swings.
Yeah, and if you really want him to be like super protective, if you put the Hollow Matter Projector on him, but then you just kind of doesn't seem to defeat the point, but that seems like not necessarily the most efficient play all the time. So, that's kind of that. And then in the finals, I played Richard again from round 1. So we went full circle. And I took the finals 2-0. I know my second game I got off another piece through Tyranny play. And his just being pretty much straight blue. And he was running Hollow Matter Projector, but I don't think he had take cover or stable cover in the side. He might have had in the side, but I don't remember it getting played. I just chewed through it, was able to KO his Skyshadow.
In this sort of, I mean, it's not a mirror because his deck is very different. We're both running Skyshadow, but he's running Perceptor. And I guess the intent, and obviously it was successful. He got second place. The intent is to just get the best cards in hand to play the weapons you want to get the most out of Skysshadow's attack while pumping Perceptor up. Were you worried about the Perceptor swing, or you were still focused on let's eliminate his Skyshadow attack?
We can kind of go into this because I have another article coming out on Fort Max. I want to say Monday is when it goes up. There, I kind of talked about some of the things that I've learned from these 2 tournaments and things I've gone through, or plays against certain things that I've found helpful. So just kind of in the Skyshadow in general, I think it'll be clear to pretty much everyone who's played against it, like forcing the combination when you want it to happen of your opponent's Skyshadow is the biggest thing. Being able to KO it like a piece outside of combat and then get a swing potentially into it just to wipe it off the board is the best thing you can do.
I've got a match coming out which is like an almost straight mirror. I think that was the difference in me versus my opponent is Horribull being able to get the combination and then taking Skyshadow out, eliminating that 8 Pierce 4 attack is huge in the mirror.
And then one other thing I've kind of gotten from the mirrored ones.
Sorry, Nick, you broke up one more time. Say it again.
And we kind of...
Yes.
All right, am I good now? Okay, I think I hit the button on my chair. Like, just kind of, we've talked about kind of how to handle what we want to attack, and I think going first just to get the max value out of Skyshadow Plane is the benefit for this deck. After I've tried second now, and it blew up spectacularly in my face during the Alpha Trion games. So against the Skyshadow, I guess I was lucky enough to play Richard round 1 and know he wanted to lead off with his Skyshadow tank because he was playing blue. So when I got to go first, I would send my plane into his tank because that would kind of throw off the pattern he wanted to attack with. Because then there was one time I was able to just the next turn drop a fusion bore on my tank and finish his off
before he got to attack with his plane. To attack.
I mean, sure it was blue, but you're still just getting rid of not kind of a turn for him, just because you're not able to play an action upgrade that time.
I mean, he is running sturdy javelins or energon axes. If there was some damage on the plane, but getting rid of that.
Yeah, so I think like another point for the Skyshadows there is like if you're playing against one and you're playing one, just sending your first attack. Usually, we always want, and before it was you wanted to send it into their big guy, And then in this one, I pretty much never went after that third character after my first game. I think against Richard the first time I swung in a Perceptor, and it made the game kind of difficult. I was still at the orange-black, so I was able to kind of keep the things and still play it where I wanted with my direct damage and kind of keep the KO on my terms in as a possibility. But I just pretty much never found myself attacking third character. I always went after a Skyshadow piece. Against Stefan and the aggro, I think we just pretty much, whoever went first swung into the other person's plane. Just because they know that's who I want to swing with, and I can't necessarily swing with him next turn because then he could be KO'd, especially since I'm running orange-black. I know exactly whatever they're hitting for is what I'm taking. I just kind of had to there. So if they won into my plane, I had to send my tank because there's more than likely no way my plane would survive another hit, and then I lose that attack, and it puts me behind without an action upgrade play because, like, still with all the orange-black and fusion boards and grenade launchers, like, the tank can still hit extremely hard. Because I can kind of say my list, I went full speed ahead with the amount of weapons I'm playing. Just because I think in orange-black, especially to get all the combat pumps, if there are stable covers, the best thing I can do is probably play a weapon outside of, especially if it's a black pip weapon, because then you're getting the option for Horribull. I've leaned into for the first list, I was like, all right, I don't want improvised shields, no dead cards in hand from when I draw them, and I want to be able to play as many weapons as possible, was kind of my thinking with the whole overall list. And it worked out.
Obviously, and like we said, the Vector Sigma tournament's smaller, it's only 16 players, but the top 4 are all running Skyshadows. We have 2 Skyshadow Horribulls and 2 Skyshadow Perceptors, but here out of 40 players, in the top 8, you've got 1, 2, 3 Skyshadows. So, like, yeah, it's. I think you've demonstrated the strength of the deck list, both in your article and in your gameplay. And congratulations, man.
Thanks, and yeah, I would say for everyone out there used to seeing Skyshadow,
start playing against Skyshadow. Start figuring that one out.
I would say. So I kind of touched on in my article 4 characters that I kind of saw pop up everywhere in this tournament, those 2 tournaments, and it's kind of what you would expect: Skyshadow and his pieces, Perceptor, Horribull, and then Fangry, and just kind of certain things you can kind of do for each of them to negate it. Maybe some counters. Like I said, I've made some updated changes after the 2 tournaments to my Horribull list now, which will also be in that article on Fort Max come Monday. I'm still not happy with sideboard choices.
Like you mentioned, I kind of get Bumblebee, right? Because you can swap if you find yourself in a matchup where you just need to take someone out and they're protecting them. You can put Bumblebee in, but it is tough to give up the Horribull burn.
But Horribull kind of does that already, and Horribull does that already with the burn. Honestly, I have not found a reason yet to ever side out a Horribull. Even if they're playing the take covers and stable covers, and hollow matter projectors. If they're playing hollow matter projector, you just put the damage on somebody else. And if they're playing take cover, you lose a turn. Of your damage there. And if they put a secret action down, like the thing you can do there, if you have the black pit weapon, that down first to see if they're gonna trigger it, and then if they do, then you're open to. Because I gotta read the wording on take cover because I don't know if it's for turn. I should be better on this, considering I covered it as not an answer, but things you can do against Horribull. Okay, so it's the whole turn. So then you just kind of know you. But the nice thing is that when you flip Horribull from bot to alt mode, that's not putting it. You're moving a damage counter. You're not actually doing damage, so that still even gets around it, which is kind of a nice thing. Which I know has come up. I think during one of your games, I believe the first one there. But that's also something so. Even then, you can still do the damage. I would say get used to seeing those 4 characters a lot. If you haven't played against Perceptor yet, just kind of think about board state and how you want to divvy up those cards and try not to give them everything.
That's one that I'm I've played against Perceptor a couple times now, and I don't think I think my weakness as a player is I don't have a good feeling for how to split those up. all the time.
Yeah. Talk about there, like, as the guys, I believe Vector Sim on it for a little bit, actions and upgrades for the first one usually is a safe play. But if you flip like maybe a dead card and those for like a improvised shield and handheld blaster, you want to put that with kind of what the best card is. Yeah. And then I kind of talked about possibly some things to work against it, maybe like kind of just more beneficial for this too, like System Reboot and maybe Fog of War as some answers, depending on what they have, because you can kind of disrupt, because when they have that many cards, they're probably trying to plan out a couple turns in advance of what they want to play when. So anything you can kind of do to pull cards from hand, and counter Espionage is still good.
This Espionage is good. In particular, against a Perceptor build, System Reboot is great because they probably have a bunch of cards on hand, and you probably don't. So, like, it's nothing but advantage.
So I've kind of, in my new one, I've put at least 2 of them in the sideboard. I still don't want to main deck it yet. I kind of noticed that I'm playing very few white pips in a lot of my decks anymore, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but it's just kind of a trend I've noticed as we get all these actually good on-color cards that white has.
That and card effects.
Down, and usually it's Sturdy Javelin.
It's not just lack of white pips, it's also like I don't play Improvised Shield all that much anymore, because it's like, okay, I get 1 more orange pip when I attack, but it's a dead card, and there's so many cards that I want to play their effect. Like, I'm fine giving, like, I don't care about an extra orange pip. Same with the white pip, right? I don't care about, most of the time I don't care about 2 extra flips. I'm doing good, consistent damage. I'd rather get the effect I want, and that's where, Sturdy Javelin comes in.
And for the aggro, I did make some concessions and add 2 Improvised Shield back, actually, to my most recent list after the Alpha Trion one. Yeah, because there are some weird times when you can swing with your Skyshadow playing that first turn, and if you hit one of those white pips and you hit those double oranges, because that'll put me up to 7 double oranges. I didn't feel the need for the full 3 since I have the 2 mounted missiles from Villainous Spotlight. And those are probably things I side out, especially if I come into like a blue matchup. But I think just having that option against aggro me up. I think the count is 32 oranges, which I feel is kind of right where most things are ending right now.
But you still have 5. Like I did, I don't think there's footage, but against my last Vector Sigma match, I was playing against a Windcharger deck, and I got to go first, and I got a lucky flip, but I think I got exactly what I needed to KO Windcharger, even without the improvised shields. And like, if you can take against a Windcharger deck, if you can take that away, like there's not a lot they're doing after that.
I see him possibly ticking up if one keeps trying to make 3-wide aggro work. Him and Fangry and General Optimus, I think, is mainly the one that's been floating around.
Weapon is 10 attack on the first turn before flips.
Yeah, and if he's with that General Optimus, he's pulled 1.
That'll
so
kill a Skyshadow
it can get. Yeah, but then though I don't know if there's enough.
Afterwards.
Yeah. Especially, I think the thing is, all the decks with the heads, obviously, you're just wider, and usually wider is obviously better in most of these when it comes down to it, even if I'm losing that attack from a piece of Skyshadow.
Yeah, and with Titanmasters, you're not really giving up stats to be wider, not that much.
No, not in, especially with Shadow. Like,
yeah, being 5 wide, being like a 5 wide in a Skyshadow deck is not the same as being 5 wide in like Off-Road Patrol.
Oh, and then I found with this Grax can hit very, very hard. Weapon on him, he's got 5 health, so he requires the other opponent to make an investment to get him off the board. He's just not getting pinged for 1 like a parsec. I think Ominous is obviously great with the Pierce 4, but Grax has been the head that pops up in a lot of my other builds, because plus 5 health now just seems so much more important than anything else that Tough can give you, or defense.
Whereas like Parsec can be wiped out by so many things that they don't really care about him being on the board.
And I know there's one there, like I got a power cell on him at one point, so he's sitting there at 8 health. And then with orange blacks, he's going to push a few damage through, and more than likely he might not die, depending on what kind of deck your opponent's running. And then if they have to force a removal to get rid of a power cell off of Grax, that's kind of a win.
That's
all around in my
another
book.
card they're not playing somewhere else, and they're still swinging into Grax anyway.
I definitely enjoyed playing that list. I've kind of, in other games I've played, have gone the damage placing route kind of style decks. It's kind of a little bit different than kind of what Transformers has had up to this point. Like, there's always been kind of direct damage, but necessarily not a lot as much as Horribull provides, because usually all the other ones came off of just the one card play, like Marksmanship or Hovercrafts, and his is just definitely
and they were
more
very range
targeted.
focused. Like this one, the only card you care about is Sturdy Javelin. Everything else, and you can play a Sturdy Javelin, like you said. There will be a turn where I'll play a Sturdy Javelin on Grax, and that's fine. Like, that's still.
Yeah, it's still great for Ominous. It puts them up to that 4 Pierce 4. Like, it works for everyone in this list, honestly, which is it's very multifunctional. Another reason I had 3 in the Octagon tournament, and I think I've cut down to 2 just to try to fit some other things in. I'm not sure that's right. I may cut down to 1 improvised shield coming up here and put another javelin back in. Just kind of one of those things, like, anything that lets me get KOs outside of combat or the damage where I want it is all A-okay in my book.
But yeah, thanks, Nick. Again, congratulations on winning the tournament, and thanks for sharing with us. And like Nick mentioned, all the other tournament contestants and everyone who's got, their Transformers TCG content out there, Stefan, the Transform Your Game guys, Vector Sigma, check them all out. And then look forward to, I think this is going up the 17th, so look forward to Nick's article on Fortress Maximus on the 18th.
Thanks for having me, and congrats yourself on being in the 4 of the Alpha Trion one. I obviously am rooting for you because we know what you're playing, and I am the believer in Skyshadow Horribull as being one of the top decks, at least so far in Wave 5.
You can be kind of agnostic, right? There's 4 Skyshadow decks. 2 of them are Horribulls. I think tomorrow it's Horribull versus Perceptor, and then my match will be Horribull Perceptor. We'll see how it goes.
I'm pulling for both the Horribulls to take over the world. I'll get membership patches.
All right, talk to you later.
Thanks for having me.